The Ahn Trio is in Austin to perform with the Austin Symphony Orchestra this Friday and Saturday as part of the program Good Things Come in Threes. And they are here in KMFA's Draylen Mason Music Studio to perform for us a little and to have a wee chat about the group and this performance. Welcome to violinist Angella Ahn. Welcome to Maria Ahn, the cellist, and Azusa Hokugo, the pianist with the Ahn Trio, at least in this running of the performances. Well, for well over 25 years, the Ahn Trio has been thrilling audiences with their exhilarating performances, their musical ESP, and their dedication to new music. They've performed music by many of today's notable composers, Michael Nyman, Mark O'Connor, Kenji Bunch, Pat Metheny, and they've covered music, songs of David Bowie, The Doors, Astor Piazzolla, and have collaborated with Metal Band, Bryan Adams, DJ Spooky, and many, many more. However, here in Austin, they'll be performing Beethoven's Triple Concerto, kind of a revolutionary piece in its time, but now taken part as the standard repertoire. So why Beethoven, and what is special about this piece to you?
Beethoven Triple Concerto for us is like a rock and roll piece because we only see the photo of Beethoven looking all serious and all this, but he was not like that. I mean, he was writing one of the most innovative concertos. I mean, it's one of a kind, and it still is. I mean, there are very few others, and Mark O'Connor wrote us a triple concerto, and Kenji Bunch wrote us a triple concerto, but there are not so many around.
Right. Well, and the point also that before Beethoven, there had never been a triple concerto. Yes. He was the very first composer to do that.
So it was one of the most innovative things to do at his time, and it's really representing our beliefs about just wanting to be different and wanting to be innovative and wanting to be open-minded, wanting to not have any rules. And, writing this concerto at the time was kind of going with all of that.
Absolutely.
When Maestro Peter Bay asked us if we would consider playing that with the Austin Symphony, it was very exciting because I do feel like not many orchestras really perform this piece as often as we would like. It's an incredible piece. I think it's always a challenge for the orchestra and the soloist because it's almost like you have the orchestra part and the trio part, almost like a chamber music, but then you have to put those two elements together.
Also, even just physically putting it together on stage is always a challenge, trying to find the right balance. But the way the piece is written, it's very much like chamber music, So it's really interesting for us to perform this with an orchestra because there's so many people, but how Beethoven wrote it is so much like chamber music, so intimate.
And in terms of Beethoven and the trio part, does he divide the parts equally? And how do you make sure that, do you know?
Should have, but not really.
Well, really? I think he does. I actually feel like Beethoven was brilliant in how he gave each part to different voices. So it's almost like the trio is having a conversation among ourselves, and then we're having a conversation.
No, I didn't mean that
he should have
done that way.
So you still have that wonderful conversation that we see when you're giving your trio recital.
No, what I was gonna say was, because initially he wrote it for his student. It's the pianist has usually music of that time. Piano has the more presence. And he begins each movement with the cello. So it was one of the first pieces where the cello was used in this way. And so...
I love the openings, all of them. It's so beautiful. Especially the second.
I agree. It's so special to hear the melody, the voice of every single movement started by the cello.
Right, but that's what I mean by how incredibly innovative Beethoven was.
Right.
If there's a rule, it's made to be broken.
Right.
And he does it, and it's not just for the sake of breaking.
So we cannot always think of him as this serious person because, he really was kind of, a rock star of the time.
Absolutely. And some of my favorite parts in his works, which can be very serious and heroic or whatever, are I hear the humor. And I've been caught off guard, like laughing in the middle of a symphony and people beside me kind of elbowing me.
I'm sure that's not how he wanted people to listen to his music anyway. He wanted people to laugh.
Right, I think so.
He wanted people to, because think about all this new music that he wrote during, and people who were listening to all that for the first time then.
Right. Yeah. You're not just sitting there. Especially in these times where that was the only music art form at the time. There were other forms, but people would come and listen, and they were expecting surprises to a degree.
Yes.
Well, why was it important for you initially to perform new music, including cross-genre music? And you went to Juilliard, the Ahn Trio formed at Juilliard. Why new music?
I think when you're a performer, an artist, it's only natural that you want to connect with the composers of the times who are writing music that's relevant to our time. And you study music so that you could do that. And actually, I think now it's not unusual. I think every performer, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Every young performer, young and old, we all perform all the music that's there. Right. And I don't think it's something so out of ordinary.
No, but you were kind of trailblazers doing that and getting to be known for that.
It was quite natural when we were at school. I believe there were two elements to it. One was being at Juilliard and being surrounded by amazing composers, of course, but the other part was New York City. New York was where all these innovators, people that were trying new things, people that were creating new art forms, they were all living in the same city. So we were just surrounded by all of this creative energy, and it was impossible to not be involved.
I know. I remember at Juilliard, our pianist sister Lucia coming to us and saying, "Oh, I want to collaborate with this modern dancer, but I want music that's freshly written for this." And because this is when we were learning about like Stravinsky, Rite of Spring, or all these pieces where they were doing something for the first time, collaboration with artists and writers and costume designers, and Picasso was doing things with, Stravinsky, and this is cool, we want to do things like that.
I do laugh about kind of looking back at that time, because as you say, we didn't intend to be, but I think we were trailblazers. Like that, remember that concert at Columbia University? We worked with modern composers, we hung paintings.
We
on
wanted
the stage.
most of the music to be premieres.
Yes, and then we had all of these beautiful lights, and that was such a strange thing at the time.
But now
that was very modern at the time.
Yes,
now
exactly.
Everyone does a lot more than that. But I just think that when you look at the history of music, all these composers back in the day when they wrote that, I think Debussy heard Rite of Spring and was like, "That's not music. What's that?" That's whispering to somebody like, "Oh, that's crazy." And so all of these things were new, and I think we often forget that all of the music that we're playing now were new.
Yes.
And why not present it in a modern, beautiful way that fits with the times?
Well, not only have you been featured in classical music magazines and such, but you've been featured in Vogue and in ads, and were on the cover of Time magazine when you were quite young. How important has image been for the trio? And I know you all like fashion and you share clothes and such, but how important is that? And is there ever a time where it's like, I don't want to get super dressed up?
This is interesting because I was just talking with Rachel from Austin Symphony Orchestra, that we didn't really intend to in the beginning. This was, again, sort of accidental because we didn't want to carry these ball gowns that needs ironing. And we were just, gone 100 days out of the year and no, more like 300 days of the year, in the beginning of our career,
Right.
just traveling nonstop, doing like 100 shows per year. And we didn't have time to, iron our gowns or just try to pack carefully. So we started just wearing like leather gowns or like jeans that had rhinestones or something that was just easier to pack. So then that kind of made us more casual.
Right.
But then we thought, hey, like, pop bands, they wear more casual things.
But I think also living in New York, style was important to us.
Yeah.
We grew up appreciating style, appreciating beauty.
Our mom
appreciating-
really was very fashionable. I think that had something to do with
and
it.
just aesthetics in general.
Yes,
And
yeah.
again, I
Art,
think it was
aesthetic.
not intentional, but that seemed at the time like we were, again, trailblazers,
Right, which I don't think of that as something so out of ordinary.
Yeah.
I think that everyone does that now.
Yeah.
And everybody has a sense of style. Also, it's not the most important thing, but we are 3 women, so.
Yeah. Hooray. Well, you've done so well. Well, you're touring now. What other projects do you have coming up? I think you said through April and May and such.
So we are going to do music. Our trio is also known for doing a lot of collaborations.
Yes.
So we're going to do a collaboration with a classical guitarist, beautiful guitarist. Her name is Antigone Goni, and we went to school together at Juilliard. She's a Greek guitarist now based in Brussels. And we have all this new music, Balkan music, written for this project. And this is very important to us because the music is dedicated to our late mother. So unfortunately, we lost her recently. And so,
I'm so sorry. I know that.
it's going to be extra meaningful to do this music. And I was telling my sisters that, well, we cannot build a performing arts center in her name, but we can commission music, by her and in her name. So that's what we're doing. And I was just thinking about how in Beethoven's time, like all these princes and all these patrons, they had so much music that was dedicated to them, like just so much music. And now it's not as common by one person, but I thought I can maybe start a trend.
Wonderful idea. I'm thinking of Stravinsky's Dumbarton Oaks, which was dedicated to Mr. and Mrs. Robert Bliss. And I thought, first of all, they own this beautiful land, Dumbarton, and their name is Bliss, and then they can actually commission Stravinsky. How great is that? It doesn't seem fair, but
it is very special. I think
you,
that
yes.
it's just a gift to us, really.
So lovely. I hope that we get to hear that music sometime in the future here in Austin. But as you said, you're doing the Beethoven Triple Concerto. I talked to Peter Bay about this on an interview show I do here at the station, and I said, so how is it for you conducting? Because you do have the orchestra and 3 soloists, but they have to interact. And he said, I'm not going to see Maria at all. I go, but he said, it would probably be...
More in touch with me. Yeah.
Because Angela's
Yeah.
standing,
Yeah.
then I will kind of turn to see a little bit.
And I don't get to see them much, so I have to depend on
Peter.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I stay with Azusa and
I stay with
yeah.
Peter.
Yes.
And then Angela will make sure that I stay together.
And hopefully we will.
Hopefully.
Peter won't be, needing to follow 3 different soloists,
Right.
but rather one group.
Well, we are known to harmonize well together, so let's try to not dent that reputation.
Well, I wanted to, is there any project pie in the sky, like down the road, something you haven't yet done maybe in a genre of music or just some big idea you have that you would love to do and toss out there to the universe?
Oh.
Well,
I
I
love
mean,
that question.
I feel like we've done a lot of different kinds of projects. Like I remember,
Yes.
because I would just come up with these outrageous ideas to my sisters, and sometimes they would say, I don't think so.
Got really quiet.
But there are lots of. But I mean, you have to try. You have to try everything out there, right?
Yeah.
And so one time it was like Brazilian Ahn with Ahn at the end.
Yes.
And we were commissioning all this bossa nova music.
Oh.
We have Insensates that we recorded on our Blue album.
Yes, yeah, 2017.
Because we just wanted to do different things, and we don't want to be limited by the fact that we are a piano trio. I mean, why shouldn't we get to do all the fun, music out there?
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I wish that I studied is jazz, because I love jazz so much.
So you must have listened to a lot of it.
We have
Listening to jazz is half the process.
Closest thing is that Pat Metheny wrote us,
Right.
a piece for us, which is an incredible honor. And we actually filmed that also at this beautiful place, Tippett Rise. But I don't know, if I can get to that level of just improvisation, just sit with anyone, and I get mesmerized when I.
It's a bit of a tight wire.
No, I know. I wish I could.
Right?
That's one thing. Yeah, that's my
It's
future
just-
dream.
Yeah, it just seems so fun.
Well, I mean, there's an old, so don't feel so bad, because there's an old joke. My husband's a jazz guitarist, so there's an old joke. How do you get a guitarist to stop playing music? You put sheet music in front of it. And some people say, well, how do you get a classical group to stop playing? You ask them to improvise.
Right. Well,
And
now young
that's not true.
Now
these
they
days.
all do both.
They all do both.
They all do both.
That's, yeah, no, all these.
We are probably like the last generation
And
that
I kind of think, I bet you can, actually, but that's just me.
maybe I'll start.
This year.
Would you like to tell us about the movements of, you're going to play for us, would you like to tell us about the movements of Triple Concerto by Beethoven?
Third movement is alla polacca.
Yes.
So at the
Polish dance.
time, it was very fashionable. This is what I mean, I think Beethoven was trying to sort of do a little bit audience-friendly thing here. And we don't think of that now, but I mean, because it was kind of fashionable of the times to do something polacca. So, and then the first movement, I would say, has the elements of dotted rhythms, which also was very fashionable of the times to make it a little bit like stately and heroic and aristocratic.
Yeah,
And
I feel like
so-
the first movement is the most majestic.
Right. It has that stately feel, but yet very intimate, very sort of, introverted. It starts very introverted, and then it opens up. I think it's beautiful. Do you want to talk about the second movement?
Second movement is so beautiful. That's my favorite, especially the opening theme. The first movement in C major, of course.
Yeah.
And then the second movement is from C, but in an A flat major key. It's so beautiful. The C with C major and C in an A flat major makes a huge difference. It's so beautiful.
I think that's sort of the romantic side of Beethoven, because he did love a lot of people. He didn't get married, but I think there were some women.
A lot of women.
Yeah.
I lived at the wrong time.
I mean, maybe not so many actually. I don't think there were so many, but I mean, because
Intense, some of these were.
probably like tormented and intense, like typical artist.
What I also love about all three movements is how we toss the melodies around among ourselves. It's so special. I give it to Azusa, or I give it to Maria, or I get it back from one of them, and it feels. The word Maria used, I think, is perfect. It's very intimate, even though it's a concerto.
Yeah,
even
that's
though it's
what
this
makes it
huge
hard
symphonic
to
work,
perform.
It's very intimate.
Because you need to project, but it's very intimate. I mean, yeah.
Well,
Anyway, it's one of the most special, spectacular pieces.
Thank you for being here. The Ahn Trio will be performing the Beethoven Triple Concerto with the Austin Symphony Orchestra this Friday and Saturday, and there will also be works by Edvard Grieg and Dvorak's Symphony No. 7. So it's going to be a couple of great nights, and we hope to see you at the concerts.
And if you have friends in Billings, we are doing the Triple Concerto with the Billings Symphony Orchestra weekend after.
Perfect.
Do you remember which day?
Next weekend in Billings, Montana.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.